What's cracking, everybody? You're back with Mr. Berger. Tonight, we're going to be taking a look at another Pompeyo deck. That's right, I get a lot of decks from Pompeyo, to be honest. I mean, let's face it, guys, he's one of the best players in the world. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of other amazing players out there that you guys are likely very familiar with. But this guy crafts some really cool decks, and I mean, I love to mirror them. And you know what they say, like, imitation is the biggest form of flattery, so hey, let's call it a tribute when I do videos that cover his decks. So this is one that I actually saw him doing on RoyaleAPI, if I'm not mistaken. If you go to the website, you can check out, 12-win popular decks, and you can also check out like recent 12-win completions, and it'll tell you the player's name who recently completed a 12-win Grand Challenge with a particular deck and what that deck was. So, that all being said, I found Pompeyo's deck on RoyaleAPI, and I pretty much copied it. So, it's really interesting. Like I said, he got a 12 wins with it, and I mean, he's a great player. I'm not nearly as good as him, so I didn't have as much success. But regardless, it has the potential to do really well. I mean, just looking at the deck, you see the way that it's built. There's a lot of really good things in there. You got the medium spell, you got the light spell, you got a lot of really powerful cards that are really good on defense, and then play this really powerful counter-push role. So that being said, let's talk about the strategies behind this deck. And the first thing that I want to point out is that this is a very defensive deck. I know I mentioned that, and I'll probably mention it again, because it's very important to stress. It's very much a control deck. Now, you do have an element of bridge spam, and I'll probably repeat that again later. But use that element of bridge spam generally as like a counter push. And when I talk about that element of bridge spam, I'm talking about the Bandit and the Battle Ram, mostly, right? But of course, you got like the E-Wiz, you got the P.E.K.K.A, you got the Zappies, and even the Dart Goblin in there. And these are all, or pretty much all, are very defensive cards. These are cards that you use on defense, and then they provide a very powerful counter push, or they have the potential to do so. The E-Wiz has that amazing Enter the Arena effect and the stun effect and all that good stuff. So, play this like a control deck. And don't be too aggressive, unless, of course, you see that opportunity to go for a very big, powerful counter push. That's when you want to be aggressive. Now, let's talk about more specific cards in this deck and kind of their role. And then we'll move on to like opening moves and card replacements and all the usual stuff that I do. So, the P.E.K.K.A. The P.E.K.K.A is your powerhouse in this deck. Use her mostly, if not always, on defense. You can use her to kind of snowball in the back, but you generally do that only in double elixir when you have an elixir advantage and you're trying to build up a big push. If you're going up against the proper kind of deck that doesn't have a counter to that big snowball push. Generally use her on defense. Save her for their heavy units. Use her to destroy support units, so on and so forth. So she's a huge powerhouse. You can also place her at the bridge and be a little bit aggressive again in double elixir time if you have that elixir advantage and you see the opportunity to do so. Now let's talk about the Dart Goblin. I feel a little bit iffy about this guy because he just always dies to log, and there's no other real log bait cards in this deck except for the Battle Ram. You could argue that you're trying to get them to waste the log on your Dart Goblin so that they can't log your Battle Ram, right? But you could do the better job with Spear Goblins and make it an equal elixir trade for you rather than like a negative elixir trade. So, regardless, he's just really strong right now, and I think that he's a very high skill cap card, so that's why a pro player like Pompeyo would be playing him. I felt like it was okay to have him in there, and it's a fun card to play, so try it out, but if you don't like it, there's definitely viable replacements, like just running a Musketeer or something like that. Alright, the Zappies and the E-Wiz, so this is pretty cool. You got that double stun effect, and I rarely see this in decks, so that's one of the things that caught my attention with this particular deck was you got the Zappies and you got the E-Wiz in there. You got both of these stunning units, and Zappies were recently introduced, relatively recently. They feel like a new card to me still, even though they've been around for a bit. But before that, it was just E-Wiz, and before E-Wiz, it was like just Zap, basically, right? They could stun. So you've got the two like main, most powerful stunner cards, not counting Zap, obviously, because it's a spell, but the two most powerful stunning units. You got the Zappies and you got the E-Wiz, and both of these units, as I mentioned earlier, because they're kind of, well, I guess the E-Wiz isn't too slow moving, but the Zappies are slow moving, and the E-Wiz has that Enter the Arena effect and the stun effect. It just makes him a really good defensive counter push card. Zappies are very similar in that role, and both of them have the potential to bait out spells like Fireball, allowing safe passage of the alternate, whichever one you didn't use previously. So if they fireball your Zappies, you can use the E-Wiz freely, and also vice versa. And who knows, maybe they'll waste the fireball on the Dart Goblin or something like that. Alright, let's move on to the Ram and the Bandit. As I mentioned earlier, these two units give it an element of bridge spam, but they're also very powerful defensive units. And yes, you can use the Ram on defense if they've got something coming down the lane. You can place it in the opposite lane, kind of like a Dice Golem, just in that nice little sweet spot where it'll kite the unit into the opposing lane, you know, making that Battle Ram actually a very powerful defensive unit, or utility even. However, the main role of the Ram and the Bandit is to give you that really powerful counter push. The Bandit can be pretty deadly with the P.E.K.K.A tanking for her too, because she'll just dash up and destroy any, you know, spear goblins or musketeers or whatever they put to, you know, far away from the P.E.K.K.A to try to kite her away. But generally what you do is you play defense, and then when you're going for that big counter push, then you send in the P.E.K.K.A or the Battle Ram as a really deadly, like, win condition almost, to try to connect to the tower there with your, you know, remaining support units, your remaining E-Wiz or your remaining Zappies or whatever. Alrighty, next we have the Poison and the Zap. That's your medium and light spells. I feel like I like Poison a lot. Fireball's good too, you could totally put Fireball in there. I think Poison is just clears the path for the P.E.K.K.A a little bit better. Does a little bit more damage overall. You know, it can completely take out like a Musketeer, whereas a Fireball will bring it down to really low health. So Poison is definitely really solid, but if you'd rather play with Fireball, by all means, go right ahead. Hey, if you like Rocket, play with Rocket. Float my boat. Float your boat. Whatever floats your boat. That's as the saying goes, right? So if you like that, though, it's going to make the deck really expensive if you put Rocket or Lightning in there. It's already a 3.9 average elixir cost deck, so it's going to get even more pricey. But you could definitely do that. And of course, for Zappy, you could put in Log, or maybe mess around and do Giant Snowball, or even Arrows or something like that. Alright, a couple more things about strategy. You could consider split pushing with your P.E.K.K.A on one side. If you get a big snowball push going, if you decide to go that route, or even be aggressive and go for like a counter push with the P.E.K.K.A at the bridge when you've got the E-Wiz or the Zappies or the Dart Goblin living behind her. Then you can use the Bandit or the Battle Ram at the opposite side as well. And this is generally only, I mean, this is a big commitment. It's like a high risk, high reward move. So generally do it when you have an elixir advantage. But you can go for that split push and push both lanes at once. And it can definitely pay off if done correctly and they don't counter it. Because they can usually, not always, but usually they'll only counter one. Whereas if you're, you know, pushing down a single lane, it's a lot easier to like focus your attention on that. If you're pushing down both lanes at once, they might like be focusing so hard on countering your P.E.K.K.A, they completely forget that the Battle Ram is even there, like they don't even notice it or something like that. Alrighty. Opening moves and card replacements, and then that's pretty much it for this video. So for opening moves, it's very much a defensive deck, so if you're one of those people that likes to hang tight and not do anything until you see what your opponent plays, that's actually a pretty legitimate strategy, and I do see pros do that. I don't like it. It's kind of boring. It's like, why do that? But hey, it's alright. The idea is that then your opponent has to play the first move, the first card, and you can, you know, play the most effective counter to it rather than wasting or potentially wasting something that could counter their win condition by cycling it, right? So for opening moves, I generally wait and play defense, or I'll cycle something in the back. Now, what would I cycle in the back? Probably the Bandit, maybe the E-Wiz, or the Zappies, even the Dart Goblin. Would not go with the Battle Ram or the P.E.K.K.A as an opener, again, unless you're using them on defense, right? If you have absolutely nothing else, I guess you could Battle Ram at the bridge, but that seems like a pretty bad opener in my personal opinion. Alright guys, moving on to card replacements. Now as I mentioned, of course, you can do the spells, you know, you could replace them with a Fireball and Log, or even Lightning or whatever. For the P.E.K.K.A, I would say another really heavy hitter, another really like defensive unit, maybe like a mini P.E.K.K.A, or if you want to go legendary, go for like a Lumberjack or something. For the Bandit, general replacements would be like the Dark Prince, the Prince. I would say Battle Ram, but Battle Ram's already in there. You could also go Royal Ghost. If you don't have that, you could probably go like Knight or something like that if you're trying to just use like common card. For the E-Wiz, generally you would go with Zappies, but since it's already in the deck, the go-to replacement for E-Wiz is usually like a Musketeer or something like that. You can mess around and do like a Mega Minion, just any other like reliable like range support card. I know Mega Minion isn't really range, but he does attack air and ground, so he plays a similar role to that E-Wiz on defense. Now for Dart Goblin, if you have Princess, you could definitely run Princess. Otherwise, you could just run like Flying Machine, something with long range like that. Or again, Musketeer is a good go-to replacement for just about any range support. For Battle Ram, I guess you could do like Skeleton Barrel or Dark Prince or something aggressive like that. Maybe even a Hog Rider. Honestly, that would probably work out. Make it a P.E.K.K.A Hog deck. And then for Zappies, again, just another range support. Something to bait out the Fireball for safe passage over E-Wiz and stuff. So maybe like a Musketeer, even like Archers, just like some reliable support card. Let's see what else could be put in there for Zappies. Of course, you can't sub it with the E-Wiz because you've already got the E-Wiz in the deck. So yeah, pretty much just any reliable support card that's ranged and has a similar cost like the Musketeer or like the Archers. Alright guys, that's pretty much it for my strategies for this deck. I hope that you guys find this deck interesting. We're going to go ahead and finish up this replay and I can go ahead and just commentate over it. But I've definitely had a pretty fun run with this deck. It took me a little bit of time to get the hang of. I didn't quite get it right away. It took a couple runs, whereas some other decks I just do like one run, get my replays, make a video about it, right? This particular one, it took like 2 or 3 runs to get my replays. But I definitely got the hang of it after a bit, and it's very powerful. It's just, you know, it's not like super easy to pick up and play. And, you know, you got the 2 legendaries in there, you got the P.E.K.K.A. I want to say it's a relatively high skill cap deck. Not that the P.E.K.K.A is hard to play, but the synergy between all these cards, getting everything down perfectly, can be a little bit difficult. But regardless, go ahead and give it a shot, you know, play that control defensive deck, see how it goes. And as you can see there, I definitely got a few replays. I managed to beat an Expo deck here with those double hunters going there at the end. That's pretty entertaining. Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Leave any comments that you have in the comment section below. I love, you know, talking to y'all and replying to your comments. If you have any questions or suggestions or anything like that, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching guys, and have a good night.